Hey folks, this is GreenXI, welcoming you right back to Let's Play Umineko. This is episode 5. In the last episode, we saw just how the grandfather and the father of everyone, the head of the household and the family, how he's sort of on his last legs. He's got sort of two personalities on the go. One way he's a bit nutty, one when he's with just Genjo by the seams of it, or Ganji. But where he's nice, because maybe it's just because he gives him drink, but also because he's been there since the mansion's been around, apparently. And we saw that all the family are together now in the mansion, the children and the parents, having food. So, let's get back to it. The Ashuramaia Family Conference was held once every year on the first weekend of October. If a normal family were to hold a so-called family conference, you'd expect it to be nothing more than a reunion of rarely seen relatives who greet each other around buckets of sushi or something. However, part of the family's great fortune had been lent out to grandfather's children, and no one in this family was considered an adult until they had met with success in business. So this meeting literally was a conference. How much of the fortune was invested? What sort of business was conducted? How much profit was earned? As a result, how much of the fortune borrowed from the main family could be repaid? Or possibly, how much more would be borrowed for future business ventures? What lessons had they learned, and what could they learn from their mistakes? It seems that topics like these were discussed very seriously in the past. My dad said it was like lying on a bed of nails. Apparently it used to be a very serious family meeting, where people were bathed in scornful and angry voices, and some people even got slapped despite their age. However, that had become a thing of the past. Now, with everyone pursuing their own business ventures and achieving success, it was becoming more of a normal yearly get-together. Even so, telling grandfather about recent events was extremely stressful. So while it was nothing more than a simple get-together for us grandchildren, it was still a real stomachache for our parents. The absence of the man who was the source of all this trouble, regardless of the reason, probably made today's lunch taste much more delicious. The phrase, while the demon is not around, everyone can relax, comes to mind. I haven't heard that phrase before. Anyway, let's introduce Jessica's father, whose face I haven't seen for 6 years. The man sitting to my father's left is his older brother and Jessica's father, Uncle. This name, sure, is easy to read. Kraus. Now that we've gotten used to this string of weird names, our perspective is totally skewed. So Kraus doesn't actually seem that bad. It even starts to sound kinda cool. Just like with Aunt Natsuhi, I didn't have many memories of speaking with Uncle Kraus. He had never been one to chat to children, and I felt like he was always talking with the adults, just like Aunt Natsuhi. According to my father's gossip, he was a spiteful and violent man. If what he said is true, Uncle Kraus used to be very domineering from his position as the oldest sibling, and was despised by all the other siblings. Though, despite that, those siblings all seemed to be chatting happily together. Oh well, even if their relationship was bad when they were children, sometimes when people grow up and live apart from each other, their relationships change. That's probably what this was. After all, they all had children of about the same age. By sharing the same family environment, they probably profited by exchanging opinions. Maybe because of that, a short while ago, the circle of parents began to discuss the exams Jessica and I would be taking. Jessica, in order to escape questions about exams from my father on her left, purposefully faced right while firing off a rapid series of comments, not giving him any chance to get a word in. Moving on, let's look at the end opposite from Kraus and the others. In the very last seat at the table, an old gentleman with a sturdy physique sat facing Kirie-san. This was my first time meeting him. I'd only just been introduced to him, but it seems he's grandfather's personal doctor, a man called Nanjo. I heard he used to own a huge clinic on the nearby island of Nijima, but he turned it over to his son and began living a life of leisure in his old age. He had known grandfather since the very beginning, when the mansion was first constructed on the island, and had built up a relationship over several decades. I thought at first that the two of them might have gotten to know each other through grandfather's suspicious hobbies, but it seems he was actually grandfather's chess partner. I see, that kind of hobby seems very like our grandfather, what with this love of all things Western. Nanjo's probably the only person who could enter Rokkenjima, despite being neither a family member nor a servant. He looked like a calm old gentleman as he listened to the discussion between Kirie and the other women who sat near to him. Considering how long he stayed by the side of our short-tempered grandfather, his generous heart was probably nothing to laugh at. Still, even if he was a family doctor, having anyone outside the Ashuramaia family attend the family conference was a little odd. It made me think that grandfather's condition might have worsened so much it'd be a major topic of discussion at today's conference. After all, George said something like that just a second ago. Something about how we've been getting continuous reports since around last year that Grandfather didn't have long to live. It's nasty to think about it, but consider how rich Grandfather is. At the time of his death, his wealth will suddenly be released, probably along with a fair share of our parents' stomach acid. And it'll lead to ulcers for everyone. After all, this sort of thing just gets messier when there's more wealth to be divided. There's a good chance they'll be talking about stuff like that at the family conference. Still, it's not like it's got anything to do with us kids. Finally, even though he hasn't shown up, let me introduce our grandfather. The person who should be sitting in that incipient's chair is Ashuramiya Kinzo. Really sucks. Everyone else in the family has these weird names, but he's got this perfectly normal one himself. If only his name were written Kinzo, but he let us call him Goldsmith or something, I'd totally freak out. As you can probably guess by now, he's a frightening person with an extremely short temper. I'm one of his grandchildren, not a son, and I haven't seen him since elementary school. Thanks to that, I have no memory of being beaten myself, but our parents were apparently raised with an iron fist. That earlier conversation between my dad and Uncle Kraus about who should go convince Grandfather to calm down seems pretty darn funny once you know their background. Well, they were beaten. You can't really tell Grandfather's story without covering that pivotal event back before the Showa era, 1926 to 89. Until the Meiji, 1868 to 1912, and Taishu, 1912 to 1926, eras, the Ashuramiya family was great and prosperous. They owned several spinning mills, making them rich enough to just double over laughing every day as the money kept rolling in. Incidentally, Grandfather was a member of a branch family and had pretty much nothing to do with the main family. Not only was he way down the list of people who could inherit the headship, but he had hardly any contact with the glamorous main family. However, during the Great Kanto earthquake in the year Taisho 12, 1923, the mansion owned by the Ashuramiya family in Odawara was flattened. The spinning mills in Tokyo were all burned down in a huge fire, and the Ashuramiya family lost most of its wealth and family members in an instant. So, once they started trying to figure out who the successor to the Ashuramiya family should be, they apparently found no one remaining except Kinzo in his branch family. In Kinzo's later reminiscences, he referred to this as good fortune so great that it overturned fate. With that, Grandfather's boring, everyday life did a 180. He was entrusted with reviving the dying Ashuramiya family, which had lost nearly all of its wealth. However, just because he had been entrusted with this task didn't mean he could accomplish it. Apparently, those around him weren't really expecting much. However, this was when Grandfather began displaying his extraordinary talent and good luck. Grandfather used all of the family's remaining wealth, as well as everything from the hair on his head to his toenails, as collateral in order to borrow a massive amount of money. Once he built up a gigantic war chest, he immediately invested in businesses. It was like someone tumbling down a hill on a bike without any brakes, and then jumping onto a neighbouring bike and then another one. Just like some crazy street performance. I'll bet everyone thought Grandfather had no business ability whatsoever. However, after several miracles and turns of good luck, with coincidences piling up and every chance taken advantage of, he was suddenly in control of powerful connections with the occupying forces. At that time, MacArthur and the GHQ were the ultimate authority in Japan. Grandfather, in a twinkle of an eye, began succeeding in business under the protection of the occupying forces, quickly becoming very rich. By this point, it's probably safe to say that information, not luck, saved the day. He must have made some seriously deep connections with the occupying forces. Grandfather knew beforehand about emergency demands that would be made for the Korean War. No, it was more than that. He must have predicted those emergency demands from the very beginning when he started investing his money. The history books made it sound like all of Japan, made a large profit off the emergency demands during the Korean War, but that isn't actually true. Only a very limited number of the super rich played the money game and made an easy profit. Most of the citizens remained poor. In other words, Grandfather was a member of this extremely lucky group of winners. I'm pretty sure this all happened during the year Showa 25, 1950 or so. The Great Kanto earthquake happened in Taisho 13, 1924, so that means Grandfather was able to revive the near-dead Ashuramiya family in only about 20 years to a level even higher than it had ever been before. With that, you'd think he'd revive the main family in Odawara. Oh God, I find that hard to pronounce. But for some reason, he went and did something as crazy as buying an entire small island in the Izu archipelago. Buying an entire island is not something that you can ordinarily do today. However, grandfather was clever. He contacted the GHQ and applied for the establishment of a marine resource base. He acquired this island as a business property, then tossed that project aside and claimed it as his own plot of land. After the war, there were prevention measures against food shortages, and having the sponsorship of the GHQ meant that nobody could oppose him. From what I've heard, the Tokyo metropolis of that day offered this land to him practically for free. Later, Tokyo made difficulties by telling Kinzo to return the land, but the pushy GHQ intervened. Anyway, it seems under the table bribes did their work well. In the end, the city gave up in frustration. Grandfather, with considerable skill and good luck, managed to weather the stormy seas of that period, obtaining a vast fortune and his own island. Of course, it probably wasn't all luck. He was obsessed with all things Western, which helped him cultivate his English skills. He was able to use this to his advantage and sink his teeth into the GHQ. A mansion was built on the island soon after. This mansion, in fact, Grandfather, with his love of the Western style, made this once uninhabited land a canvas upon which he could realise his dreams to his heart's content. He now had the Western mansion of his dreams, overflowing with emotion and atmosphere, and a beautiful garden featuring all sorts of roses. And he had a private beach where nobody other than himself would ever be permitted to leave a footprint. This would be a dream come true for any boy. After that, he made good use of his huge fortune, becoming a large stockholder in the extremely stable iron and steel industry, and was able to live an easy and comfortable life just using the dividends. Well, he's just that incredible. This kind of person usually has the ability to foresee and predict the future, or at least that's how they're portrayed after the fact. But Grandfather denies all that, repeatedly saying that he was simply blessed with extraordinary luck. Anyway, even a lord like that can't help but grow increasingly eccentric when locked up alone on an island, where all his dreams are made real. Everyone knows that he's had a Western obsession from the start, but none of our parents really know when his bizarre black magic hobby began. Did his love of black magic begin way back when he became fascinated with everything Western? Or did his miraculous stretch of good luck while reviving his family cause him to feel a mysterious power in himself? At some point, Grandfather began to make the research of black magic his life's work. He filled his study up with suspicious books, chemicals, magical items as he became increasingly bizarre. From what I've heard, those around him warmly watched over him, figuring that someone who had achieved success in life had a right to do as he pleased. But there's no way that's true. They were probably just creeped out, thinking, that's disgusting, I don't want to get involved. Anyway, that agitated period was an age of big gambles, with both opportunities and risks. Let's say Grandfather was born in this time period. He would have had no opportunities, would probably have advanced like a chess piece from a mandatory education to college at a leisurely pace, never becoming more than an average salaryman. If that happened, he'd probably have sat somewhere, happily talking behind his boss's back. No, not a fancy dining hall like this, more like at a table in some bar. Then again, I'll bet this family conference would be a whole lot more relaxing if that were the case. Okay, that's enough about the old geezer. Yeah, it's another history lesson done. More importantly, let's talk about this incredible lunch. Yeah, go on then. Let's get back to it. I'm already convinced by that sashimi salad appetizer. Goda-san's an excellent chef. Plus these fish were caught in the adjacent seas, weren't they? They're totally different from the sashimi you get at the supermarket. Hey, quit it, Battler. Your upbringing will be exposed. Everyone let out a big laugh. Damn it, you say that even though you love those cheap pubs. I've eaten at many unusual places because of work, but this stands right up there with the best of them. I'd be willing to bet Goda-san used to be pretty well known in those circles. Well, I don't know the details. But stuff got complicated at the long-standing hotel he used to work at, what with them opening a new establishment with the same name and breaking into factions, or whatever it was. In the middle of all that, he was apparently forced to retire. At that time, Mom just happened to be sending out job offers for a servant. As Goda removed the empty plates, he began to recount his own bumpy past without losing his smile. The world is a difficult place. However, thanks to the madam, I was given a chance to display my skills as a chef once again, this time for the Ashiramaya family. Although I enjoy experiencing the smiles of a larger number of people, I also find it quite entertaining to perform more delicate work that can please the limited number of those who have employed me. All this is thanks to the opportunity given to me by the madam. Goda-san respectfully bowed his head towards Aunt Natsuhi. That's because you were the most talented of the applicants. The decision was purely objective, not based on personal feelings, so there's no need to thank me. Dang, why does Aunt Natsuhi always have to sound so indifferent? If only she spoke with a bit more kindness, she might leave a different impression. Shannon-chan and Kumasawa-san entered from the hallway with a serving cart. Please excuse us. Now then, let's move on to today's dessert. Goda-san and the others laid the beautifully adorned dessert out in front of us all. I guess it's true when they say you have another stomach for dessert. I always have dessert. I thought I'd already filled up on delicious food, but as soon as I laid eyes on that dessert, my stomach started yelling, "More!" More? I don't know much about desserts, but this looked really good. A white pudding-like substance was garnished with 2 shades of red sauce, and elegant rose petals adorned the dish. Normally during a high-class meal like this, you're supposed to wait for the chef to extol the virtues of this particular meal before eating. However, Maria was completely indifferent to strict rules like that, so she got excited by this beautiful and delicious looking dessert, jumping into the fray as soon as it was placed before her. Aunt Rosa scolded her, calling it bad manners, but George responded by saying, Now, it's okay. Ooh? This part's sour. This part's sour. Battler, this one's no good. Ooh. Maria explained as she sampled the 2 coloured sauces. Some are good and some bad. Okay, I'll give it a go. Apparently one sauce was sweet and the other sour. Despite it being bad manners, I also stuck my little finger in and licked it. Whoa, one of the sauces was sour enough to make you pucker up. If it were yellow, I'd have suspected lemon, but I couldn't guess what kind of sourness would be red. I decided to ask Shannon, who was putting away the serving cart behind us. Shannon-chan, what kind of sauce is this sour stuff? Shannon-chan hesitated. Maybe her job was just to set the table, so she doesn't really know. Still, even considering that, she seems pretty stressed. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. Or did they use some ingredient that would be better off not knowing about? While Aunt Natsuhi made a gesture that seemed to indicate an oncoming headache, Kumasawa-san, who was sat in the table at the opposite seat, began to chuckle. What do you think we made it out of? It'll shock you. I don't have a clue. Wait a sec, Kumasawa-san, that laugh's pretty creepy. So what is it? Don't tell anyone, okay? Listen very carefully. Kumasawa-san leaned across from the other side of the table. I leaned forward myself when she asked. Their interest caught. Jessica, George and Nikki, and of course, Maria also put their ears closer. Ooh, what? What? Quickly! You see, the sour part is made from... Juice squeezed from a mackerel! Oh. What? Mackerel? That's crazy, we all thought, horrified. Only Maria accepted it, nodding sagely. Oh? Mackerels are sour. This is what comes out when you squeeze them. When Maria started clamouring that mackerel was sour, the adults were unable to contain their laughter. Only Aunt Rosa, her face red, whispered to Maria that mackerel is sour only once prepared as shimasaba. Ah, now I totally remember. Kumasawa-san was always like this, wasn't she? I think I remember her tricking me too in all sorts of ways when I was young. The most lethal has got to be that one. Those flimsy black things in Chinese dishes. They're kikuragi, mushrooms. She told me they were penguin meat, and I went all around school like a smartass telling everyone, didn't I? Kumasawa-bachan, you sure haven't changed. You know Maria's gonna believe it now, right? Oh, it's just a joke. Now Goda-san's gonna tell us what the sauce really is, won't he? Goda looked a little put off about his masterpiece being laughed at for such a bizarre reason. But after clearing his throat once, he introduced the dessert to us. Well then, allow me to introduce our dessert. After seeing how much you all enjoyed the rose garden earlier today, I finished this panna cotta in a rose garden style. The rose petals scattered across were selected just now from that very rose garden. The sauce is a combination of 2 reds, strawberry and rose hips. Please enjoy this mixture of the strawberry sweetness and the rose hips sourness. Furthermore, the rose petals are merely decorative, so please avoid them while you eat. With that said, please enjoy. Whoa, I almost want to applaud before eating. Just like with the medicine, reading the detailed description first seems to make it work a whole lot better. As Goda-san elaborated on the details of this dessert, it started to feel even more appetizing. Seriously, should you call him subtle or just talented? The dessert was probably planned from the beginning, but taking the hint when we all stopped in front of the rose garden earlier today, He displayed an incredible and timely awareness by just adding a few rose petals from that garden. That's quite clever. This combination of sweet and sour was also exquisite. If it was just sweet, you'd just get used to it and bored halfway through. But if you reached the sour sauce at that point, you get a really vivid taste. And then, once you return to the sweet sauce, all the sourness in your mouth would be replaced with an enjoyable sweetness. I'm sure everyone else felt the same way. Every time Goda-san passed by one of our seats, someone praised the taste and his presentation. How is it, madam? Splendid as always. It's worthy of entertaining our guests. I'm most grateful for your words. Madam, did you know? I've heard that rosehip has the ability to cure headaches. I thought that you in particular would appreciate it, so I had it specially prepared. Is that so? Thank you. See, didn't I tell you, Natsuhi-san? Rosehip is great for headaches. So it seems. I do hope it actually helps. Ha! Goda-san, I love you. Hey, later on, why don't you tell me how they're treating you? Or if you can't, just let me know what sort of salary you'd like. Having your talent confined to this small island is sacrilege to humanity's cooking culture. What do you think about working your craft for my company and delighting all our customers? Hideyoshi-san, you trying to steal away our Goda? No, that won't do at all. We'd better start treating Goda better, or we'll get snatched up. Yes, you really should. If you don't, someone's going to grab him, and you'll be stuck with 3 meals of Kumasawa-style mackerel cooking a day, won't you? Oh, that's harsh. Seems someone's holding a grudge against me. Everyone let out a huge laugh. According to Jessica, Kumasawa-san's mackerel jokes were a running gag that our parents had long since gotten used to. Kumasawa-san often claimed that mackerels had precious nutritional value which could slow aging, making people smarter and more. Supposedly, while it couldn't stop the outward signs of aging, it helped prevent it on the inside. Since she was still spirited enough to tell these kinds of jokes at her age, there must be something to that theory. Oh, in that case, if you'll excuse me, prepare yourself for tonight's dinner. I'll be cooking plenty of mackerel dishes for you all, so you better look forward to it. You sure will. We sure will. Can't wait to get all puckered up from tonight's shimasaba. That sounds wonderful. Wonder if they'll be serving any good Japanese sake. Oh, we certainly will. Haven't you heard of Rokkenjima's famous mackerel shochu? Just chuck mackerel and everything. Kumasawa-san, together with Shannon-chan, bowed and pushed the serving cart away. It was pretty funny to watch Goda-san, who looked like a show had totally been stolen, explain in a serious voice that he would be having calf steak for dinner. Kumasawa-san, thanks for doing that back there. As she pushed the serving cart, Shannon bowed her head very deeply. Oh, I haven't done anything that requires thanks. Kumasawa may have played dumb, but she had obviously understood and saved Shannon in the nick of time. Back when Battler had asked about dessert, Shannon had unfortunately hesitated. There may have been several ways to dodge the question, but all of them would have required some quick wits. Shannon, who hesitated when hard pressed for a response, was always suffering because of this small weakness. If only Shannon had a little of the craftiness needed to cleverly shake off a mistake, like Goda, her life would have been a bit easier. The fact that she could perform other tasks flawlessly made this weakness even more unfortunate. However, there were some who understood Shannon's honest nature, her inability to gloss over a mistake and draw attention away from it. That was why Kumasawa had smoothly come to her rescue. I just heard from Genji-san that there'll be a change in the afternoon shifts. I believe you were given a break until this evening. Oh, I'm jealous. Oh, sorry, I haven't checked the shift chart yet. Ah, yes. I was thinking I might start cooking some mackerel in the oven. If you don't mind, I'd be happy if you would help out a bit before your break. Ah, yes. I would be delighted to help. To Shannon, Kumasawa was like a mother among the servants. The dining hall needed to be cleaned up, so we were chased out. Instead, tea was being served in the parlour. It's all they do is eat and drink. Apparently, they prepared the black tea that Aunt Rosa had bought for Aunt Natsuhi. Maria said she also wanted to have some black tea, but my old bastard said she couldn't and told us children to go play outside. Battler-kun, why don't we all go for a walk outside? Go ahead and take a look at the roses or something. But keep a close eye on the weather. The sky's still clear, but the weather report kept on talking about rain. Oh, I want to go to the beach. The beach! Oh, that sounds wonderful. Playing on a sandy beach isn't something you get to do often, is it? Ah, good point. Okay, let's all go to the beach then. Oh, let's go. Maria, be careful not to get your clothes wet. Or your shoes. Oh, won't get wet. That obedience is so cute. Batlakun, make sure you keep an eye out for Maria-chan, okay? Sure, leave it to me. Hey, you're pretty obedient and cute yourself, listening to Kiria like that. Why don't you also listen to me obediently for a change? Ha! Hell no! Let's go, everyone, come on! The children flew out of the parlour. They were replaced by Genji, who pushed a serving cart in and prepared to serve the tea. The parlour was filled with a sublime aroma, which delighted everyone while they waited to sate their thirst. Ha! Rudolph's family certainly seems close. It's a wonderful thing. Quit it, we're no match for your family, Aniki. That's true. You've raised Jessica-chan to be so adorable. Imagine that's yet another fruit of your talents at education and training, Natsuhi-san. Thank you. Natsuhi answered coldly. The conversation broke off then and the parlour fell silent. Maybe Hideyoshi couldn't bear the silence because he broke it himself with an exaggerated gesture. Still, they sure do grow fast. I thought they'd be kids forever, but they're starting to get huge all of a sudden, and then they're adults like us. Batlakun looks like a completely different person now. His body has grown much bigger, but he's still just a kid. Though you could say the same about my husband. Wonder where the border between child and adult is. I still don't feel as though I've grown up. Isn't that pitiful? That's not something the mother of a child should say. That's right. We're not children anymore. We're all adults now, so I wish we could talk together on an intellectual level rather than an emotional one. When Eva smiled with sharp sarcasm, everyone seemed to get more tense. It felt as though that pleasant tea aroma had been tossed out the window. Since long ago, we've always endeavoured to engage in intellectual conversations. It seems your sarcasm occasionally misses its mark. Just as it always has. Oh, what is it you've always endeavoured to do? My. I wish I could wrap those words up and send them to this room a few decades ago. Right, Rosa? Rosa gave a vague smile. She knew that whether she agreed or disagreed, she'd earned the displeasure of one of her siblings. It was a bit of worldly wisdom that had been essential for someone grown up as the youngest sibling. Quit it, Aniki. We better get started on our main topic while the brats aren't around. Let's make that our intellectual discussion. As Rudolph glanced over the faces of all present, some let out a slight sigh, and some let a small look of resignation cross their face. They were approaching their unavoidable true agenda. Last year, his life expectancy was estimated at about 3 months, so we're going into a conversation about why they actually came to the island for, I suppose. Which I guess means he's got negative 9 months left now. Should we take that to mean it might suddenly happen at any time? The family head is still alive and well. The fact that you bring up such an inappropriate topic under the light of day makes me doubt your sanity, Rudolph-san. Still, Natsuhi-san. This is the sort of thing you can't put off until after something happens. He's still healthy now, which makes this the perfect time to talk about this, while we've got time to plan. It's just a bit of financial etiquette, you might say. Seems father is the focus of everyone's concern. Dr. Nanjo, could we hear the details from you? That appears to be what everyone else is waiting for after all. Nanjo, who had been standing by the window and staring out at the rose garden, let out a single cough when he realised that he was being called. Dr. Nanjo, how is father's condition? Well, to begin, allow me to start with a revision, since my estimate last year that he had only 3 months left was not borne out. No need to explain. You're saying that measuring remaining life is only a prediction, not a promise, right? That's correct. Because of that, while I will accept everyone's repeated questions, I can by no means confirm when he will pass away. A human's life is supported by their body and their mind. If the body is weak, the situation becomes more dangerous, but if the mind is strong enough to compensate for that weakness, the effects of one's condition can sometimes remain in a subdued state. So you're saying that even if his body is weak, his mind is still firm and spirited? Kyrie, sorry, but please stay quiet for a bit. I'm sorry. That's correct. Kinzo-san's body is being overwhelmed by the demon of ill health. This will hold especially true as long as he continues to partake of such strong alcohol. So he's in a crisis now because he drinks. And maybe he's lived this long because he drinks. This dad for you, the heavy drinker. Well then, Doctor, I know you can't give anything more than a prediction. but what do you think about Father's chances of living until this day next year? That's quite a rude question to ask about the family head. Natsuhi jumped on Eva, not even bothering to hide her astonished expression. Eva stayed back daringly, but Hideyoshi realised what was going on and tried to smooth things over with a forced smile. Natsui-san, forgive her. Eva, choose your words a bit more carefully, okay? I'm sorry. I was just so concerned about Father's condition. Is that so? I hadn't realised. Dr. Nanjo, please tell us. For the sake of the beautiful love of a daughter worried about her father's lifespan. The amount of sarcasm and irony. Kraus laughed sarcastically, and Eva, smiling sweetly, returned an identical chuckle. You ask whether he will still be healthy next year. But as a doctor, it's very hard to say. Because while I do think this lull in his condition will continue for a while, if he suffers some kind of fit, there may be nothing we can do. After all, Rokkenjima is a solitary island. It's not as though an ambulance could quickly jump in to save him. Normally I would want to have him placed in a large hospital on the mainland, but Father stated that he does not want his noble research interrupted. It seems he holds a grudge over the way we tried to force him out last year. Apparently, he strongly suspects that he'll be shut away in some hospital if he goes outside, and that's how things are now. Has Dr. Nanjo been examining him? Father trusts Dr. Nanjo. It seems he could be examined when in one of his better moods. I can examine his condition, but if I try to recommend medicine or hospitalization, he refuses to listen. I've really only been able to look. It's true, some people hate doctors. Still, what a hassle. Nanjo sighed deeply. The purpose of an examination is to determine what medical treatment would be appropriate. Receiving an examination and then following on the advice given makes the whole thing pointless. So, to sum it up, he's still expected to live 3 months. There's no way to guess how long he'll continue to live while still on the verge of death. Rudolph-san, can you be a little more discreet with your words? Sorry. I've always talked this way. Give me a break. I understand how Dr. Nanjo sees it. What about you, Kraus-ni-san? To be perfectly honest, I have to disagree with Dr. Nanjo. I find it truly difficult to think of Father as a person so sick that he has only 3 months to live. His yell is as healthy as ever. I still get chills at the thought of his fists raining down on me. Pushing the care of your father solely on the shoulders of the eldest sibling is far from fair. In the next world, get born after me. Okay, let's get back on track. So in the opinion of our impartial and neutral doctor, it wouldn't be odd for him to go any time. No offense to you, Aniki, but I'd rather trust the opinion of an expert in his field. Which means it's definitely not too early to start talking about Dad's assets. Father's personal funds probably reach as high as several 10 billion yen, right? But it's not as though that's all neatly gathered as ready cash. It's not as simple as simply cutting a birthday cake with a knife. That's an interesting way to put it. That's right, you sometimes get strawberries or chocolates on top of the cake, making it hard to cleanly cut it into equal parts. Given that, don't you think it's important to discuss beforehand how best to stick the knife in? I can't understand how you all can openly discuss this as though the family head is dead, even though he's still alive. Come now, don't you see how important this is? After all, when this time comes, the inheritance of his fortune must be carried out immediately, right? Moreover, the glorious Ushuramaya's house's wealth is vast. Don't understand that careful discussion is necessary beforehand? There's a huge difference between this family's resources and your family's wealth. How rude! My birth family has nothing to do with this. Natsui responded indignantly, though in a low voice, and the already dark atmosphere grew even more hostile. Give it a rest, Eva. Natsui-san, forgive us. Pardon her rudeness. Hideyoshi tried to smooth things over by glancing at both with a forced smile, but it only resulted in making the hostility between Eva and Natsui even more intense. It seems I'll just get in the way if I stay any longer. Please excuse me. Nanjo rose from his seat and exited the parlour. To an outsider, it may have seemed like a normal act of courtesy, but his back was watched by several glances, envious of his ability to escape. After the doctor had exited, and his footsteps had disappeared into the distance, Kraus recrossed his legs. In other words, this is what you all would like to say. Father's remaining life is short. You want to quickly enter into a practical conference concerning the distribution of the inheritance. Why are you so eager, I wonder? Certainly, as you say, estimating and distributing the Ashurmaya family's wealth is no simple task. In that case, shouldn't we make careful and deliberate calculations? It seems to me that you're all impatient to split up the cake tonight. Isn't that true, Rosa? What reason is there to be hasty? We aren't being hasty. However, we need to have an agreement between the siblings. It doesn't matter when we do that. But if the day father's condition worsens is approaching, discussing the matter beforehand hardly seems hasty to me. Rosa shot a glance at Eva and Rudolph. As the youngest sibling in the family, it was hard for her to be cross-examined by the eldest. Oh? Is that your true opinion? I didn't expect that the most honest and pure-hearted of the siblings would say something like that. I wonder if those two had told you to say it. Quit it, Aniki. Rosa's one of Dad's kids too. She's got as much right to his inheritance as the rest of us. It's only natural that she'd be interested. After all, Dad'll definitely die, and that's not something that'll happen in the distant future. On the contrary, Aniki, you're way too relaxed. It almost seems like you'd like nothing better than to turn the discussion away from the inheritance issue. What do you mean by that? Are you trying to accuse my husband of something? Calm down, Natsuhi-san. Listen to what we have to say. Nissan, I hear the times have been extremely good lately. Yes, since last year we've been in an unprecedented boom and the yen keeps on rising. It seems that it's no longer a dream that the dollar will reach 100 yen. Also, the ruling party says that it will establish health resort maintenance law by next year. At this moment, resort development companies across Japan are running about, trying to gather as much funding as they can. You certainly seem to know a lot about it. Japan's about to experience an unprecedented boom. It'll be a repeat of the Korean War demands, a time during which Father revived the Ashurmaya family. The people of Japan have been working like mad, achieving vast economic growth and becoming the most well-off people in the world, reaching the height of our prosperity. We've reached an era where private spending is vast, which means easy money for institutions that can capitalise on that fact. The three kinds of electrical appliances no longer represent the people's needs. The people need ski resorts, golf courses, public pools, resort hotels and theme parks. Have you gone to Disneyland? Which opened just a few years ago. That's bad. One excellent theme park. It's a place where even an adult can be a kid and have fun with his family. No longer do we count our sole virtue to be selfless devotion or failing to care for our families. We have become the most prosperous people in the world, and now we can finally enjoy the benefits. Kraus-san, your foresight's nothing to sneeze at. When I heard that sort of thing several years ago, I thought it was crazy. But when I hear about the G5 Nations Plaza Accord, that all changed. The yen shot up, and I'll bet the price of land skyrockets soon too. It won't be long before Japan becomes the economic centre of the world. You've got a great sense of the direction the world's moving, Kraus-san. At least there can be no debate about that. I feel the same as Hideyoshi-san. Aniki, you can read into the next decade of history. I'll bet you got that keen sense from Dad, and it's incredible. However, unlike Dad, the timing of your predictions has been a bit off sometimes, right? Nissan, you've been starting resort projects everywhere, convinced that Japan will soon see a boom, but almost all of them continue to fail. While I'm sure that the era you predicted will soon arrive, it seems you misread the timing of that boom. You were too early. You then panicked and tried to sell everything off, which only opened the wound even further. If your nose was really so reliable, then there should be no reason for you to sell off your property. Is this proof that you mistrust your own ability? How rude. Are you trying to insult my husband? Natsuhi's forehead creased as she rose from the sofa. Eva, paying this no heed, stared at Kraus with a confident smile. Kraus, who also maintained his confident appearance, told Natsuhi to sit down. Please stop, Natsuhi. Eva's always been incapable of talking any other way. Calm down a little, or your headache will get worse. There's proof of your lack of talent right next to us. After all, Nissan, weren't you all excited about turning this island into a resort? You built a wonderful resort hotel and beautifully maintained the garden. Just an amateur and don't pretend to understand, but you must have used a significant amount of money for that, right? And what is that to you? My husband's business is none of yours. Actually, that's not true, Natsuhi-san. Wakajima doesn't belong to Aniki. It belongs to Dad. Of course, the hotel does belong to Aniki, right? In fact, we'd be more than willing to pay lodging fees for tonight. What do you think, Rosa? Well, if what I have on hand will suffice. If I can make it into a resort, this island's financial worth will rise. It's true that expenses have piled up, but we can expect a large harvest in the future. When that happens, all of you stand to profit as well, do you not? I understand that. If the value of this island rises, that'll increase our portions when we distribute the inheritance. Of course, I won't ask you to divide the island and the mansion into 4 equal parts. We can just resolve the matter with money equal to the value of the property. If you understand that much, what about my business makes you so dissatisfied? We aren't dissatisfied, we're uneasy. In the first place, Aniki, when do you plan to open that hotel? Left this way, we won't get anything out of it except our grubby handprints, right? That's right. It's an important tool for your business, isn't it? Surely you can't keep it locked up until the moment you open it. Buildings go bad if you don't use them, and air them out every once in a while. Even so, it's a bit extravagant for a guest house that we only use once a year. Right, Rosa? That's right. Considering how wonderful it is, I'm sure it will become quite popular once you open it. Oh, so the hotel we keep talking about is the guest house. It's splendid. Just as Rosa said, if we were to open it, I'm sure it would become popular. The lodging they had been guided to wasn't originally intended to serve as a guest house. It was originally constructed as a resort hotel. However, even though it was built 2 years previously, there was still absolutely no prospect of it opening. Nissan is just like all of your enterprises. Your attention and planning are both fabulous. Then, it always becomes unmaintainable partway through and ends before you have a chance to earn any profit. You were brilliant when you saw that using this island only as a place to live was a waste. I think it was a pretty good plan to turn it into a resort that could use the prospect of marine sports, fishing, honeymoons, and the like to attract customers. If I were the oldest son, I'm sure I'd have strained my brain looking for a way to make a profit off this island. But 2 full years have passed since you finished building, right? After 2 years, you still haven't had the opportunity to open it. Where's the managing company you entrusted it to? Impertinence! That is not my husband's fault. There's just been some trouble with the company that my husband contracted with. No matter how you look at it, we are victims here. And yet, the rumours we've heard about this company you hired haven't been good at all. Let's be clear about this, dear. Did you really think we wouldn't hear about how lack of payment, embezzlement, and other issues led to the project disintegrating mid-flight? We even have evidence. I don't know what kind of evidence you think you found, but it's all baseless. As new members in the tourism industry, it's necessary for us to lay the groundwork with various people. It's also important to investigate the trustworthiness of our partners. It's merely taken us some time to meet that goal. I'll admit that in my rashness, the hotel was completed too early. However, it's not as though we're paying maintenance costs. It's a foundation that will eventually become immensely significant. Liar. I'll bet you want to liquidate it but can't. After all, there's no reason for anyone to buy such an extravagant hotel on an isolated, empty island without any established sightseeing routes. And anyway, what about all the loans you made for this project? Even if you aren't incurring maintenance costs, the borrowed money that you can't return just keeps growing. Sorry, Krausny-san, but I've investigated the development plan for this island a bit. To be honest, I haven't heard anything good either. Hideyoshi-san, I can see how you might be left with that impression by looking only at the current financial situation. However, this is a forward-looking investment. I have no choice but to admit that my prediction was mistaken, and that up until now, several liabilities have been created. However, the times have finally caught up with me. I will soon regain everything that I have lost up to this point. No, actually, all the investments I have made up until now will finally return to my possession. That's right, just like throwing away a small fry to catch a salmon, they will come back even bigger than before. I'll accept that. The resort business will probably see an unprecedented boom before long, though I don't know if it'll be enough to cover all your debt. However, Krausny-san, after all your failures in the past, who exactly do you expect to provide you with funding? And this isn't some small amount we're talking about. You'll need enough funding to fill the massive hole you've dug. What are you trying to say, Hideyoshi-san? Natsuhi-san, please don't get angry. We looked into this too. We checked to see who might have provided Krausny-san with enough financing to support his recent large-scale projects, despite a string of failures. And we discovered that no such backer exists. The iron rule of the money roulette is that you bet against the loser. Aniki, you're a fairly well-known loser in this field. It's true that prosperous times are about to come, but when we looked for people who considered that enough to overlook your string of failures, and also had enough for the investment, we found no candidates. So, the big question now is where you got that money from. Oh, now isn't this intriguing? And? Dear, how long do you plan to let these ridiculous remarks stand? Sit down, Natsuhi-san. Let's cut to the point. Aniki, you've been diverting Dad's private funds for your own business. There's pretty much no room for doubt. If you think we've made some kind of mistake, please feel free to explain. Businesses. Rudolph, don't call it diverting funds. This is embezzlement, plain and simple. A huge crime that can be criminally prosecuted. This sort of rudeness cannot be tolerated. How can you face the successor to the Ashuramaya head family and level these absurd accusations? They aren't absurd, they're right on the mark. I'm sure he'd like to make his business succeed. Hello? Okay. They aren't absurd, they're right on the mark. I'm sure he'd like to somehow make his business succeed and recover his losses, but his debt keeps getting bigger. He's just trying to cover up the failure of one gamble by making an even bigger one. It's only natural that he tried to grab any source of funding close at hand. Let me be frank, Nisam. What you're doing is embezzlement. You're betraying Father. You know that we'll have the court settle this after it's all over, right? Do you think that kind of person has any right to call themselves a successor to the Ashuramaya head family? Avola, you dare to claim that he has betrayed the family head? You no longer have the right to straddle the threshold of the glorious Ashuramaya family. Leave this place at once. Now. Get out. Give me 2 seconds. I think my headset's playing up. Natsuhi, who had already reached the limits of her anger, shouted at Eva in rage. She then pointed alternately at Eva and the hallway, demanding that she leave. Eva took out a folding fan and fanned herself with it, glaring maliciously at Natsuhi, as though silently daring her to repeat what she'd said. However, her mouth was still smiling, curved in the shape of a crescent moon. In that unpleasant silence, Rosa gulped. Hey, Natsuhi-san? To whom do you think you are speaking in such a tone? I'm speaking to the exceedingly rude sister of my husband. As the person in charge of the main family's kitchen, I cannot overlook any more of this. In charge of the kitchen? Be silent, lowly maidservant. Eva folded the fan with a snap and rose to her feet energetically. Compared to the elegance and playfulness she'd shown until a second ago, she was now unimaginably aggressive. How foolish! You stand down! Before Eva of the Ashuramaya family. You tell me to stand down? Me, Ashuramaya Eva, the third ranked in the Ashuramaya family hierarchy, and the one allowed to sit at the left shoulder of the head? Know your place. And then look at your shabby self in the mirror. Where's the symbol of the wing on your clothes? Where are you permitted to wear the one-winged eagle? Aren't you nothing more than a borrowed womb to house the next successor to the Ashuramaya family? Understand your place, you common housemaid. Eva's face twisted hideously as her words gouged into Natsuhi's heart like talons, wrenching at it. There were 100 ways Natsuhi wanted to respond. However, her anger and sorrow crushed her throat, and none of those words managed to make it to her mouth. Her anger had nowhere to go, and became a single hot tear that slowly dripped down. What's wrong? If you have something to say, please do so. Come on. Eva forced her with a provocative gaze. I just noticed that I put it back on full screen. Let's do that. However, Natsuhi could do nothing but tremble, her clenched fists quivering. Kraus quietly broke that powder keg tension. Natsuhi, leave your seat. You should go cool your head. What? Natsuhi, resenting the fact that her husband had not come to her aid, shifted the focus for her attack. Dear, don't you understand what they're saying about you? These people are baselessly calling you a traitor to Father. They are making light of the fact that we protect the glory of the Ashuramaya family, even though we are constantly expending every effort to earn that glory from Father. They trample all of that underfoot with their hateful rambling. And you don't even try to fight back. Why? I'm only standing up for us because you won't. But you've been putting the entire burden on me for some time now. And now you tell me to go cool my head? It's always me. Even though I have always considered this family's affairs so seriously, you've... Natsuhi was already unable to hide her tears. She flew from the room in that state. After that, all that remained was a somewhat embarrassed mood about the parlour. When the sound of footsteps grew distant and silence returned, Kraus shrugged his shoulders slightly. I apologise for my wife. She's always been bad at controlling her emotions. It's even been rough for me. If that's what's been managed in your household, you must suffer to no end, Nisan. Madam, it's nothing. Leave me be. Natsuhi flew into her room and threw herself onto her bed, lamenting. Those heart-wrenching sobs reached Kumasawa in the hallway. Poor Madam Natsuhi. There's a deep enmity between her and Iwa-sama. Explaining their relationship would be very trying for me as a woman. The Ashiramaya family holds blood in high regard, but if a woman marries and leaves the family, they are normally removed from the family register. Thus, under normal circumstances, Iwa-sama should have been removed when she married Hideyoshi-sama. However, there is no one deserving of blame in this matter. The madam certainly bears no guilt. They had nothing to call it other than a whim of God. Kraus-sama and Natsuhi-sama were not blessed with children for some time. After all, this is the male-dominant Ashiramaya family. A wife is merely a tool to create an heir. If such a wife cannot fulfill her only duty, she will not even be treated as a human. It pains me to remember how the master tortured Madam during that time. Back then, a wedding between Iwa-sama and Hideyoshi-sama was being discussed. Iwa-sama was sly. Taking advantage of Madam's inability to become pregnant, she gained the favour of the master. She inspired him to allow her to marry and give birth to a successor herself, making sure to avoid transferring her name out of the Ashiramaya register. There was a vast difference in the Ashiramaya hierarchy between Madam, who married into the Ashiramaya family and was treated like an outsider, and Iwa-sama, who was related to the family by blood and whose husband took on the Ashiramaya name. Furthermore, Iwa-sama actually gave birth first, and to a boy. As for how much weaker Madam's position was than Iwa-sama's, I believe you could see for yourself. I'm sure Madam is tormented by the thought that if only she had gotten pregnant earlier, the master wouldn't have accepted Iwa-sama's request to keep her last name after marriage, and Iwa-sama wouldn't have been permitted to act as arrogantly as she did today. Yeah, she could be a right bitch. However, that was not Madam's fault. All the blame lies with God's whims and the stork that delivered Jessica late. Even so, Madam won't allow herself to see things this way. She probably can't help but cry bitter tears as a woman at her inability to carry out the duties expected of a wife. How sad. I cannot do anything except watch over her from the shadows. Ho ho. So Natsuhi, we saw how she was getting agitated about every little thing that was being said, especially about her husband and the business and all that sort of side of things. And Eva can really push her buttons as well. So we've also seen how horrible, really horrible, the Ashiramaya adults are, or a lot of them. Rosa seems a bit better, but she's the youngest, so maybe she's too afraid to speak up more. That's just theory. And also, I don't know. I think Kyrie also is in the background because she's not one of the family properly. She is, but she's not bloodline. You know, is that sort of family. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. We've had the clock smash, the Final Fantasy X smash. This has been Greeny XI. Hope you've enjoyed the proper drama between the adults. I'll see you again in a bit. When we see where the story goes next. I'll be saying that every time, I think. Thanks again for watching, folks. See you again in a bit. Oh, look at this. Before we go, all the tips are there now. All the people in the tips. These were missing before because they haven't been explained by Battler. So a couple of them are filled in now, and we've got them all. Anyways, thanks again for watching, folks. See you in a bit.